The evening sun bled over the ridges of the Dakota plains, painting the sky in gold and crimson. Dust rose behind a lone rider, a tall cowboy on a weathered chestnut stallion, his coat torn from travel and his hat tilted low against the wind. His name was Cade Lawson, a man once known for his silence, his aim and his code, never promise what you can't keep. But tonight he was riding to fulfill a promise that wasn't his own. A year ago, Cade had saved the life of a drunken rancher named Henry McCall, a man who, in his gratitude, pledged everything he owned as payment. When Henry died suddenly, Cade discovered the debt written out in ink and sealed with something far greater than money: his daughter, Clara McCall. Cade had never believed in owning a soul, but the law in Dead River was cruel and absolute. The sheriff placed the paper in Cade's hands and said the words that hung in the air like gunpowder. "You paid for her, Lawson. She's yours now." Cade didn't say a word. He took the paper, tore it once, and tucked it away. He didn't want a wife bought with ink and coin, but he couldn't abandon a woman to a town full of wolves. When he arrived at the McCall ranch, the wind had quieted, and the air smelled of sage and sorrow. The house stood half-broken, its windows cracked and porch tilting. A single lantern flickered inside. Clara stood there, strong-willed, proud, her hair the color of copper in firelight. Her eyes met his without fear. "You paid for me," she said softly, her voice trembling but fierce. "Now do it." Cade froze. The words hit like a bullet, not in anger but in pain. She wasn't challenging him. She was surrendering to the world's cruelty, to the price her father's debt had written on her name. He set his hat down. "Miss McCall, I didn't come here to own you. I came to make things right." She laughed, sharp, bitter. "Right? There's no right in Dead River. Men don't buy women to make things right. You'll get what you paid for." Cade turned away, the wood floor creaking under his boots. "Then I overpaid," he said quietly, "because I didn't want a woman. I wanted peace." That night he didn't sleep inside. He set up camp by the corral, staring at the horizon until the stars blurred. But from the house window, Clara watched, her anger slowly cooling into confusion. By morning, he was gone, or so she thought. When she stepped outside, the broken fence was fixed, the barn door rehung, the horses fed. Cade was working quietly, sleeves rolled, sweat running down his neck under the rising sun. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded. "Because you deserve better than being paid for," he said simply. "Let me earn the right to stay." Days turned into weeks. The ranch began to breathe again. Cade worked from dawn till dusk, mending, repairing, protecting. When bandits came sniffing around for unclaimed property, he stood his ground, hands steady on his revolver. Not one dared to test him twice. Clara, stubborn as she was, found herself softening. The man who had bought her had never once touched her, never once claimed her name. Instead, he taught her how to shoot, how to ride stronger, how to read the stars when the nights grew dark. One evening, after the first rain of spring, Clara stepped onto the porch. Cade sat by the fire, carving something out of wood, a small figurine of a horse. "You're leaving soon, aren't you?" she asked. He didn't answer at first. "Then when the ranch can stand without me, yes." Her heart clenched. "You fixed everything, Cade, except the one thing that broke first." He looked up. "What's that?" "My trust," she whispered, "in men, in promises." He set the carving down gently. "Then maybe I'll stay a little longer." Weeks passed, and the town began to whisper. They called her the Cowboy's woman, and she stopped correcting them. She realized one morning, while watching him ride through the fields, that she didn't care what they called her, only that he would come back at sunset. Then came the night everything changed. A group of outlaws, men who had once worked for her father, rode in under moonlight. They wanted the ranch, the gold Henry had hidden before he died, and the girl who still bore his name. Cade fought them off, 5 men against 1. And though he won, he fell, bleeding on the porch steps as dawn broke. Clara held him, trembling. "You fool," she cried. Why would you do this? He smiled faintly. Because I already did it, he said. You said, now do it, remember? She stared, realizing the meaning. He had done it. Not the cruel act she'd once feared, but the impossible one. He had turned payment into protection, debt into devotion. Cade survived, but barely. When he awoke days later, Clara was sitting beside him, her hand in his. On the table lay a piece of paper, the same one that had started it all. Torn again, this time into ashes. You don't owe me anything, she said softly. He met her eyes. Maybe not, but I still want to stay. And she smiled for the first time, a real smile, free of fear and pride. Then stay, not because you paid for me, but because you earned me. Months later, the bells of Dead River rang for the first wedding in years. The town that had once mocked them now stood watching as Clara McCall became Clara Lawson. As the preacher closed his book, Cade looked into her eyes, his voice low. I never believed in fate, he said, but maybe fate's what happens when you do the right thing, even when it hurts. And she whispered back, then promise me, Cade Lawson, keep doing the right thing. He smiled. Every day, Mrs. Lawson. The wind swept through the valley, carrying the scent of dust and new beginnings. Somewhere in the distance, a lone horse whinnied, a reminder that even in a land built on debts and danger, love could still be the one thing no man could buy, only earn.